The bridge lights had gone from green to red in the same second, 4 times. Sarath Vethkor stood with both hands flat on the console and stared at the shape that had done it. 4 of his ships were dead in the water. 4 more still had power, still had guns, and none of it mattered because the thing sitting across the relay lane hadn't fired a single shot. "Confirm the trace again," he said. His analyst, Yeva, didn't look up from her screen. 46 hours old, sir. It was flagged as rock mass. The shape is wrong for rock. No warning had come. No declaration. No shot fired at all, just silence, and 4 warships gone dark at once. Sarath's dermal plating had already darkened along his spine, and he hadn't noticed until his tertiary manipulator started flexing on its own, the way it always did before bad news landed. 19 days. That was the number Yeva gave him next, and it sat in his chest like a stone. 19 days a ship the size of a small moon had held position in that debris field, dark, silent, and nobody on his side had seen it. The supercarrier hadn't been hiding from the corridor. It had been waiting inside it. "Sir," Yeva said, "the withdrawal notice. It went out 19 days ago, too." Sarath's optical clusters didn't move from the display. The math was already forming, and he didn't like where it ended. "I'll be honest, I didn't believe it myself the first time I heard how long that carrier sat there. Stay with it." 6 years earlier, this same stretch of space had been quiet in a way that meant nothing at all. The Valen corridor ran narrow between 2 dead systems, a strip of contested space lane the Dravathi Empire had been probing for over a decade. Sarath's patrol formation cut through it 4 times a cycle, the same arc, the same spacing, the same silence on the comm. His fleet held 8 ships along this stretch, and not one of them had taken fire in 2 years. "Formation holding," his tactical officer reported. "Corridors clean." Sarath logged the withdrawal notice the moment it landed in his queue. It wasn't addressed to him by name. It wasn't addressed to anyone in particular. A blanket transmission from the Human Outpost Command, 3 lines long, offering to vacate 3 skeleton stations along the corridor's edge within 30 cycles. He read it twice and filed it as compliance. "They're pulling back," he told his second. "Finally." It was the kind of message a beaten force sent. Sarath had seen a dozen like it from smaller colonies further out, always followed by the same thing: quiet withdrawal, empty stations, a corridor that opened up like a door nobody bothered to guard. He didn't ask why humans who'd held this line for 6 years would give it up without a shot. He didn't ask because the databases in front of him had never given him a reason to. The answer to the Empire's ultimatum had been in motion for 3 weeks before the ultimatum was ever sent. Nobody on Sarath's side knew that yet. 19 days before the notice reached his queue, a ship 2 kilometers long had cut its engines in the middle of a debris field and gone dark. Aboard the USCS Relentless, Admiral Rael Voss stood at the back of a bridge lit only by the glow of passive displays. He didn't pace. He rarely moved at all once a plan was running, and this one had been running for 19 days. Basu handed Voss a cup of something that had sat too long on a warming plate. Voss took it without looking at it. The dent faced outward, same as always. He drank without commenting on the taste. It was warm, and it was there, and that was enough. "Sensor sweep from the relay station," said Tavo, the junior operator, barely into his 2nd year on the bridge. "They're still running the same patrol arc. No change." "Good," Voss said. "Sir, respectfully, we've been sitting dark for 19 days. My readouts are starting to drift on the passive arrays. Are we waiting for something specific, or just waiting?" Voss set the cup down on the arm of his chair, the dent facing the display, reflecting nothing back at him. "The waiting is the plan, Tavo. The waiting is the weapon." Tavo didn't ask again. He'd learned that Voss answered every question exactly once, and rarely more than a sentence. Commander Petra Sun crossed the bridge with a data slate in each hand, the way she always carried 2 when she wanted to compare them side by side before speaking. She had a habit of not saying anything until she was certain, and when she did speak, the room listened. Admiral, reinforcement fleet just dropped out of transit at the central relay station. 8 ships. Command vessel, 2 escorts, 3 fuel tenders, 2 patrol cruisers. On time, Voss said. Ahead of schedule, actually. Sarath's been running this corridor for 6 years without incident. He's not expecting anything. His formation discipline is textbook. It's going to put every ship exactly where I said it would. Petra had built the targeting model over 4 months, refining it every time the patrol pattern gave her a new data point. She didn't guess. She confirmed, checked, and confirmed again, and when she finally briefed Voss 2 weeks ago, she hadn't hedged a single line of it. Command ship will anchor at the relay station's north berth, she said. Fuel tenders dock at the maintenance ring. Patrol cruisers hold a loose perimeter, engines idle, sensors set to routine sweep, not combat alert. They think this corridor is empty. It isn't, Voss said. Basu's voice came over the comm from engineering, flat and procedural, the way it always was. Stealth envelopes holding steady, Admiral. Thermal bleed is under threshold. We could sit here another month if we had to. We won't need a month, Petra said. Down in the fighter bay, wing lead Darrow Fane ran his hand along the hull of his own craft for the 3rd time that shift, checking a seal that had already been checked twice. He didn't trust a plan until he'd walked every inch of the hardware himself. 72 birds, fueled and armed, he reported up to the bridge. I want eyes on the target list before we commit anyone. You'll have it, Petra said, when it's time. That's what you said last week. It wasn't time last week. Fane didn't push back further. He'd flown under Voss for 6 years and had never once seen the man rush a call, not when it cost him ships, and not when it cost him time. The Admiral's patience had a reputation. Some of the newer pilots called it unnerving. Fane just called it the reason he was still alive. Back on the bridge, Voss studied the passive display where the reinforcement fleet's 8 signatures sat locked in the exact positions Petra had projected weeks earlier. Not one ship had deviated. They lined up for us, Admiral, Petra said quietly. Voss didn't answer right away. He looked at the dent in his cup, facing outward the same as always, and then back at the display. Then we wait a little longer, he said. Let them finish settling in. The corridor stayed quiet. Somewhere behind that quiet, 48 silent drones sat racked and ready in the Relentless's low-pressure launch bays, and nobody outside this bridge knew they existed yet. The drones went out without a sound. 48 of them, no larger than a human torso apiece, eased through the Relentless's low-pressure vents one at a time, engines cold, running on stored charge only. No exhaust plume, no heat bloom, just black shapes drifting into a debris field that was already full of rock and wreckage, indistinguishable from everything around them. They were not fast, Petra said, watching the launch telemetry scroll past in dead silence. They were patient. Voss said nothing. He watched the same telemetry from his chair, cup in hand, and didn't touch it again until the last drone cleared the launch tube. 14 hours. That was how long the coast would take, drifting on nothing but momentum through debris and dead space toward the anchored Dravathi fleet. No propulsion meant no signature. No signature meant no warning. Nobody sleeps until this is done, Voss said. It wasn't an order. It was a fact, and everyone on the bridge already knew it. Tavo watched his display for the first hour without blinking, then made himself look away, because staring at nothing happening for 14 hours straight was its own kind of exhausting. He caught himself checking the clock every few minutes anyway. You don't have to watch it that hard, Fane told him, dropping into the seat beside him with a ration bar he hadn't opened yet. Nothing's supposed to happen until it happens. That's what worries me. That's the whole plan, kid. Fane finally tore the wrapper. Nothing happens, right up until everything does. Down in engineering, Basu ran a check on the stealth envelope for the 4th time that shift, more out of habit than need. The numbers hadn't moved. They weren't going to move. He reported it anyway, because Voss liked confirmations even when nothing had changed, and because saying it out loud made the waiting feel like it was going somewhere. Petra didn't sleep either, not really. She sat with two data slates in her lap, one showing the drone telemetry, one showing the Dravathy formation, and she checked them against each other every 20 minutes, even though she'd already run the numbers 100 times before launch. They haven't moved, she said, mostly to herself. Not one ship. Somewhere in that stretch of hours, Voss set his cup down and picked it back up 3 separate times without drinking from it. Basu noticed, but didn't say anything. Some things a man did to pass 14 hours weren't worth commenting on. The drones reached station-keeping positions inside the Dravathy formation, without a single sensor flagging them. "They're in," Petra said. Her voice didn't change, but her hands had gone still on the slate for the first time in hours. All 48, holding position between the hulls. Voss stood up from his chair, for the first time since the launch. "Mark them," he said. Aboard the Dravathy command ship, nothing had changed on any display Sarath's crew could see. His tactical officer logged a routine hour and moved on to the next report in the queue. Then 4 ships lost power in the same second. No warning, no declaration, no shot fired. 4 warships across the formation went dark within the same heartbeat, engines dead, running lights out, distress beacons the only thing still transmitting. "Report," Sarath's voice cracked across the bridge, sharper than his crew had heard it in years. I can't find a cause, sir." His tactical officer's manipulators moved fast over the console, pulling logs that showed nothing. No incoming fire, no thermal spike, no contact of any kind. It's like their systems Just what? Stopped, sir. Sarath's dermal plating had already begun to darken along his spine. He flexed his left tertiary manipulator once, twice, the habit he'd never been able to break. Sensor sweep, full active array, now. The sweep came back clean. No hostile signatures, no debris movement that shouldn't be there. Just 4 dead ships sitting among 4 that still had power, and nothing anywhere to explain why. For 87 seconds, the corridor stayed like that, confused, blind, convinced that whatever had happened, it had happened without a cause. Then the Relentless dropped its stealth field. It didn't creep into view. It simply stopped being hidden, all at once. A shape larger than anything in the Dravathy fleet registry, sitting less than 4,000 meters from the command ship's flank, exactly where the debris field had shown nothing but rock for 6 years. "Sir," Yeva's voice had gone thin. That's not on any chart." Sarath stared at it, and for the first time since taking this command, he had no report to file, no doctrine to reach for, nothing in 19 years of tactical training that told him what to do with a ship that size appearing out of empty space with its weapons still cold. It wasn't firing, it was just there. "You'll want to hear how this ends, trust me on that." Wing Lead Darrow Fane's voice came in clipped and fast over the Relentless's launch channel. "Fighters away." 72 craft cleared the bay in under 8 seconds, hitting combat velocity almost immediately, spreading into a formation that had been rehearsed so many times it needed no instruction from the bridge. Fane took point on the first pass himself. "Target the sensor arrays first," Petra's voice cut through the comm, calm even now. "Comms second. We don't need them blind and confused. We need them blind and quiet." The first pass took out both patrol cruisers' active sensor clusters before either ship's point defense could track a single incoming fighter. The second pass hit the fuel tenders' comm relays, and just like that, 4 of Sarath's 8 ships couldn't see and couldn't talk to each other. "They're not attacking the hull," Sarath's tactical officer said, disbelief bleeding into his voice. "They're attacking our ability to know what's happening." They were not fighting desperately, Petra said later, when she filed her own report on it. They were managing him. On the Dravathy bridge, Sarath watched 2 of his ships go dark in the same way the first 4 had, this time by human hands instead of drones, and he understood something was happening to him that he did not have the vocabulary to describe. Not a battle, not yet. Something slower and colder than that. He opened a channel to the command ship. Status: 4 dead in the water, 2 blind, 2 operational. A pause. Sir, orders. Sarath looked at the shape sitting between his formation and the relay station, unmoving, unfiring, and for the first time in his career, he did not have an immediate answer. That was the moment the quiet became something else entirely. The moment Sarath Vethkor realized the corridor he'd called empty for 6 years had never been empty at all, and that whatever came next had already been decided long before he'd logged a withdrawal notice as compliance. The comm channel lit up before anyone on Sarath's bridge could speak first. "This is Grand Admiral Seth. Report your status, now." Sarath straightened despite the 4 dead hulls floating behind him. 4 ships disabled, Grand Admiral, 2 blinded, 2 operational. We are facing an unidentified vessel of significant mass, currently holding position and not engaging. Not engaging. Seth's voice carried the particular stillness of a superior, deciding how much blame to assign before the facts were even settled. "Then why does my board show half your fleet gone dark?" "We don't know, sir." "You don't know." Sarath's tertiary manipulator flexed once hard. "The sensor logs show nothing. No incoming fire signature, no thermal spike prior to failure. It is as if the ship simply—" "Simply what, Commander?" "Stopped." There was a silence on the other end that lasted longer than Sarath liked. He understood, distantly, that this call was no longer about this corridor. 8 ships had been the only reinforcement Fleet High Command had cleared for the entire sector this cycle. If this patrol failed here, there was nothing behind it. No second wave. No quiet correction later. Whatever happened in the next hour would be the shape of the whole region for a long time. "Hold position," Seth said. "Do not withdraw until I have a clear picture." The channel closed. Sarath looked at his tactical officer, whose manipulators had gone still on the console, waiting for an order that wasn't coming yet. Around them, the bridge lights had settled into the low amber of a ship running on backup power it didn't need to use, a small mercy nobody felt grateful for. Aboard the Relentless, Voss watched the exchange come through on intercepted comm traffic, translated a few seconds behind real time by Basu's decryption routines. "They're calling their command chain," Petra said. "That's the whole reinforcement fleet for this sector. If we take it, there isn't another one coming for a long while." "I know," Voss said. He reached for his cup, found it empty, and set it back down without refilling it. There would be time for that later. Right now there was only the shape of the thing in front of him, holding, waiting, the way it had been built to wait. "Yeva," Sarath said, turning from the dead comm channel. "Cross-reference the debris field. I want to know what that ship's thermal signature looked like before today. Anything. A shadow. A false read we dismissed." Yeva had already pulled the archive before he finished the sentence. Her manipulators moved fast across the console, sorting through cycles of routine sensor sweeps nobody had ever flagged as urgent. "Here," she said, 46 hours ago. A thermal bloom, low intensity, filed as debris settling. I checked it against 3 other sweeps going back further. And the same shape appears in a sweep from 19 days ago, same mass profile, same position within 100 meters. She looked up, and for the first time since Sarath had known her, her voice lost its procedural calm. "Sir, it was here before the withdrawal notice was ever transmitted." The bridge went quiet, in a way that had nothing to do with the failed ships. Sarath's hand found the command baton at his side without him telling it to, his thumb running once across the row of notches worn into its handle, 47 of them, each one a battle he'd walked away from. He didn't look at it. He just needed something solid under his hand while the rest of it landed. "The notice wasn't them giving up," he said, slower than he meant to. "It was a timer." Nobody answered him. Nobody needed to. The withdrawal notice was not compliance, it was preparation time. He had read it 3 weeks ago and filed it as surrender. The humans had already been sitting in that debris field for 2 days by the time he'd logged it that way, and they had kept sitting there for 17 more, waiting for the rest of his fleet to arrive and settle into the exact positions Petra's son had mapped from a chair on a ship he hadn't known existed. They weren't reacting to us, Sarath said. They were never reacting to us. His tactical officer had no answer for that either. Across the formation, the 2 remaining Dravathi captains with full ship function were requesting orders on an open channel, voices tight, waiting for a plan that wasn't coming. Then the channel changed. No warning tone, no hostile challenge, just a single navigational route appearing on the open frequency, unencrypted, broadcast to every Dravathi ship still capable of receiving it. Coordinates, nothing else, no demands attached, no deadline stated, just a route leading away from the relay station, away from the Relentless, back toward Dravathi space. That's a way out, Yeva said. Sarath stared at the coordinates scrolling across his display. Somewhere behind them, the shape that had waited 19 days in the dark had not moved and had not fired, and now it was simply offering him a door. He didn't move to take it, not yet. 3 of his captains did. Their ships broke formation within seconds of each other, engines flaring toward the offered vector without waiting for Sarath's order, without waiting for Seth's authorization, without waiting for anything except the one piece of information that had just made the decision for them. This was not a fight anyone here had ever been positioned to win. "They're leaving," his tactical officer said, unnecessary as the words were. Sarath watched the 3 ships peel away and understood, with a clarity that felt almost peaceful after the last hour, that he was going to have to explain this to Seth in terms that made sense, and that there weren't any terms that would. On the Relentless, Petra's voice came through low. 3 ships taking the exit. The rest are holding, but they're not going to hold long. Voss nodded once. He hadn't moved from his chair in over an hour, and he didn't move now. "Let them decide," he said. "We're not going to make it for them." Basu's voice crackled over the comm from engineering, quieter than his usual reports. "Admiral, thermal bleed on the stealth envelopes climbing. Nothing dangerous. But I thought you'd want to know. We've been running hot longer than we planned for." "Noted," Voss said, and nothing more. Fane's fighters held their position in a loose net around the Dravathi formation, engines idling, weapons cold, waiting the way they'd been trained to wait. None of them fired on the 3 ships taking the exit vector. There was no order to, and no reason. Across the corridor, the last 2 intact Dravathi cruisers held their ground beside their commander, engines running, guns silent, caught between an order to hold and a door that had just opened in front of them. Sarath opened a private channel back to Seth, and for a moment before it connected, he let himself look at the shape of the Relentless one more time. Not moving, not firing, simply present, the way it had apparently been present for 19 days without a single sensor on his side registering it. "Grand Admiral," he said when the channel opened, "I need to report something you're not going to want to hear." There was a pause on the other end, longer than the silence before it. "Report it anyway," Seth said. "You issued a withdrawal notice," Sarath said. "We treated it as your surrender. It was not your surrender. It was your countdown." Silence answered him for 3 full seconds, long enough that Sarath wondered if the channel had dropped. "Say that again," Seth said. "The vessel in the debris field. It has been in position for 19 days, before your notice was ever transmitted, Grand Admiral, not after, before." Sarath's manipulator had stopped flexing. There was nothing left in him that needed the tell. "We did not walk into a corridor that emptied when we arrived. We walked into one that had been occupied the entire time we called it clear." Another pause, shorter this time. When Seth spoke again, something in his voice had changed, the certainty gone out of it, replaced by the flat caution of a man recalculating everything he thought he knew about the last 3 weeks. "What is your fleet status?" 2 ships taking the exit vector now, 2 more likely to follow within the hour. 4 disabled and unrecoverable without a repair conv. We do not have clearance to send into that corridor. And the vessel itself. Sarath looked across the gap of dead space at the shape holding position, patient, unmoving, exactly as it had been an hour ago and 19 days before that. It hasn't fired once, he said. It didn't need to. Seth was quiet for a long moment. Then, withdraw, all units. Full withdrawal from the Valen corridor, effective immediately. I will inform High Command myself. Yes, Grand Admiral. The channel closed, and Sarath found himself alone with the decision he'd been circling for the better part of an hour. He looked once more at his command baton, 47 notches under his thumb, and understood that none of them had prepared him for a battle where the other side never showed him what it was doing until it had already finished doing it. Set course, he told his helmsman. Take the vector. His ship was the last one out. Aboard the Relentless, Petra watched the final Dravathy signature clear the debris field's outer edge and fold into transit space, gone. That's all of them, Admiral, she said. The corridor's clear. Voss didn't answer right away. He looked at the cup on the arm of his chair, empty since he'd set it down an hour ago, and picked it up again out of habit more than thirst. Basu, he said into the comm. Bring the envelope back down. We're not chasing anyone. Copy that, Admiral. Powering down the active systems now. Tava watched his display clear of every hostile contact for the first time in 19 days, and found he didn't know what to do with the quiet now that it had actually arrived. He'd spent so long watching for something that when nothing was left to watch for, the screen just looked empty. Sir, he said, is that it? Is it over? Voss considered the question the way he considered most things, slowly, and only once. For now, he said. Fane brought his fighters home in the same formation they'd launched in, 72 craft returning to a bay that had held them silent and ready for longer than most of the pilots wanted to think about. Not one of them had taken damage. Not one shot had been fired at the Relentless the entire engagement, and Fane found that harder to sit with than a fight would have been. They never even saw us until we wanted them to, he said to no one in particular, running his hand along the hull the way he always did, checking a seal that had already held. Petra crossed the bridge and stood beside Voss, both of them looking at a display that now showed nothing but debris and drifting wreckage where 8 ships had been. 6 years, she said. 6 years of this corridor, and it took 19 days sitting still to end it. It took longer than 19 days, Voss said. It took every year before that, too. She didn't argue the point. She'd built the targeting model on 4 months of patient observation, stacked on top of 6 years of patrol, data someone else had gathered before her. And she understood, better than most people on this ship, that the 19 days had only worked because of everything that came before them. Grand Admiral Seth filed his report to High Command later that cycle, alone in an office that felt smaller than it had that morning. He wrote 3 paragraphs describing fleet losses, withdrawal timing, and the unidentified vessel's estimated mass and capability, all of it built from Sarath's account and the scattered sensor data his analysts could salvage. Then he wrote the line that would follow this engagement through every briefing that came after it. We do not know where it went. He read it back once, considered softening it, and left it exactly as it was. It was the only honest sentence available to him. Somewhere behind the debris field, the Relentless was already dark again, engines cold, thermal bleed dropping back below every threshold that could have found it. Basu ran his final check and reported the envelope clean. Tavo watched a display with nothing on it, and for the first time in 19 days, let himself close his eyes for longer than a blink. Petra ran the pre-dark checklist herself, the same one she'd run before this all started, and when she reached the last line, she said it out loud the way she always did, though there was no one left who needed to hear it. Corridor clear, stealth envelope nominal, holding position. The ship drifted back into the debris field the same way it had held there for 19 days before, and would hold there for however long it needed to next. Voss sat in his chair long after the others had gone back to their stations, the bridge quiet in a way that had nothing left in it to wait for. He reached for the cup one more time, found a little warmth still left in it from before the engagement, and finished it. It was not good, it never had been. It was warm, and it was there, and that had always been enough. He set it down on the arm of the chair, the dent facing the display, reflecting nothing back at him. Then he reached forward and turned the display off himself, one motion, no ceremony to it. The bridge went dark around him, one screen at a time, until there was only the low hum of a ship that had learned, a long time ago, how to disappear into the shape of the space around it. He sat there and let the ship drift.